Hello there. Welcome to Knowing Me, Knowing You with Dolly. I am Dolly Esendu. Our topic for today's edition of Knowing Me, Knowing You with Dolly is, are we communicating effectively? Are we communicating effectively? Are you communicating effectively with your husband or your wife? Only you can answer that question. On the show, we realize that effective communication is essential for us to achieve what we call on this show the happily ever after. I am a communications expert, but on our show today, we are not going to be dealing with the academics or the rhetoric of communication. We're keeping it basic. So we are going to be looking at what does communication mean in marriage? How does it work? And how can we communicate more effectively in our marriage or as husband and wife? Communication in marriage is essential because that is the way to pass information from one person to another, giving us an opportunity to express our beliefs, our emotions, and our desires. So it is important that a husband and wife communicate effectively. Now, when a problem arises in marriage, you will hear a husband or a wife say something like, we're having all these problems because we're not communicating. That is not correct, because people are constantly communicating. The thing is, are we communicating effectively? Let us look at what experts say about communication. Experts in communication have agreed that there are two ways to communicate. Verbal communication, which is the use of our voice, the use of words, of sound to communicate, and non-verbal communication, which is body language, facial expression, gestures, body movement, touch, and even your fashion. You can make a fashion statement. Your timing, that's all part of communication. So let's pay attention here now. Experts agree that in communication, only 7% is verbal. Now, 93% of communication is actually non-verbal, where you don't use your voice. It's just body language, your facial expression, your eyes, gestures, your body movement, touch, timing, and even your fashion. So when experts have concluded this, it means that human beings, people, are constantly communicating. So when a couple says we don't communicate, you can see why I say that is not correct. Husband and wives are constantly communicating. The thing is, how are you communicating? Are you communicating effectively? Are you using more of your verbal communication, or are you using body language? That's the thing. Now, when we pay attention to the way we communicate, you find that you are more likely to communicate effectively if you are conscious of the fact that you are communicating constantly. Let's take an example at this point. Let's remember that facial expression is very, very powerful when it comes to non-verbal communication. Look at the scenario. We have a full-time homemaker. That's what I call a lady that takes care of the home full-time. She's a homemaker, so only her husband goes out to work. Now she's in charge of buying all the things, of making sure everything is run properly at home, even paying the children's school fees sometimes. So she feels that, with the inflationary trend, that things have gone up and she needs a little bit more money added to the housekeeping money. So she's been so upset because, she's been spending money and she doesn't know where the money is going. And suddenly as her husband is getting ready to go to work, he just finished his breakfast and he stands up and he says, look, see, you have to add money to that money you give me for feeding, to run the house. It's just not enough. I really need to have money. You have to add it, please, because I don't understand what's going on. So he looks at her. He doesn't say anything. He turns, he picks up his car keys and he walks to the door. Usually she would follow him, to the door, see him off. But, today she just looks at him, frowns. He looks at her, frowns. He walks to the door and he opens the door. He walks off. Then at the end of the day, he comes back home. Normally she waits at the door to welcome him. But this time he knocks. She takes her time, drags her feet, gets to the door, opens it, doesn't even say welcome. Of course, because she's upset the way he reacted to her. So she turns turns and walks away. He looks at her, frowns, walks into the bedroom, and that's it. Of course, he says nothing about what she requested for. Now, let us look at the same scenario. Now, this other wife, in the morning as the husband is getting ready for work, she comes to him. She says, honey, let me help you adjust your tie. And she adjusts his tie and helps him with his collar and all that, brushes off some non-existent, something from his shoulder. And she smiles at him and she walks to the door with him. Now, as he's about to step out, he says, honey, I forgot something, but you do look nice today. This shirt looks good on you. He says, oh, thank you, darling. And he now says, do you know, I wanted to tell you last night, I don't know what's happening. Everything has gone up. Maybe when you come back, we'll talk about it. Will you really need to add something to what, you've been giving me for this housekeeping? How is he going to react? He's more likely to say, okay, honey, when I come back, we'll talk about it. Then he goes. Now, on his return from work, first, she's gotten herself ready. She's looking very attractive. She meets him at the door, opens the door. Darling, welcome. Please come in. How was work today? And he says, oh gosh, I'm exhausted. Sit down. And then she helps him with his suit, with his jacket. Let me take this. And she takes it in. She comes back. Are you going to take a shower first? I have something warm for you. And he goes to the table. He sits down. He eats. As he's eating, she now sits there and watching him. Darling, how do you like it? Oh, this is lovely. Of course he is in a good mood. And he says, in fact, this time he will remember to say, yeah, you mentioned something about it. He said, yes, I did. Don't you see, things are so expensive. Of course, he's more likely to react to, positively to what she's requesting from him. I use that all the time with my husband. And most of the time, when I smile and I said, oh, darling, what's going on? This and that. He immediately says, what do you want? The way you're going, I know you want something. And of course, oh, I don't know, you caught me there again. Yes, this is what I want. And it works all the time. So the same scenario, the same situation, in one case, the body language passed the right message and the message was effective. And in this other situation, the body language, the verbal communication was all not effective. And at the end of the day, nothing was achieved. So that's a good example for us. Let's now look at some of the things that hinder effective communication in marriage. Why are we not able to effectively communicate? First one is sending wrong signals via body language. For instance, when your spouse is talking and your husband is telling you something or your wife is telling you something and you're not maintaining eye contact, you're not looking at him or her. You say, Mama, please, I wanted you to do so. And you're looking somewhere else. That's the wrong signal you're giving. It means you're not listening to him. You're not making eye contact. The second one is raising one's voice. It's easier and it's better to communicate by just lowering your voice and just, listening to what is being said. And then when you want to talk, you talk in a calm way rather than raising our voice. Then complaining. We talked about complaining. Complaining. That hinders effective communication. Expressing anger. Not that you will not express yourself, but there are ways of doing it that are more polished, that are better. Then, of course, stonewalling. Stonewalling is refusing to cooperate or to communicate or to let the other person in. There's a situation, you're carrying your face all over the place, and then your husband asks, honey, what's the problem? You say, no, there's no problem. Say, are you sure? You don't look as if, no, don't bother, I'm okay. Meanwhile, you're not okay. There is a situation, but you're blocking the other person. That is stonewalling. Refusing to answer questions, refusing to discuss the issue, that is stonewalling. And that's not very good when it comes to effective communication. It hinders effective communication. Then there is defensiveness. Being overly sensitive to criticism. When your spouse wants to say something, as soon as she or he starts saying, you see, I don't like this. They say, what did I do? I didn't do anything. You see, I did it because of da 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 da. Was it not you who said that? So that is defensiveness and just trying to justify your actions instead of just calming down and listening to the other person. So these and so many others are things that hinder effective communication when it comes to marriage. So what are the keys to effective communication? Those things that would help us communicate better if we pay attention to them. Listening. Quite often we don't listen. Your spouse is saying something and before you know it, you tune off. So if she comes back or he comes back and says, did you hear what I said? You said yes. What was it you were saying? You were not listening. We need to listen better and maintain eye contact. As you listen, you are looking at the person, you are expressing, giving expressions to show that you are actually with him or her on the same page. The next one is expressing appreciation. Expressing appreciation just means saying thank you. Oh, thank you, honey. Thank you, darling, for this and for that. That is a very good way of, communicating effectively. It, lightens things down and makes sure that, your spouse is happy. He feels appreciated. Another one, affirmation. Oh, darling, I really like what you're doing with the children. You are really, really trying. Please keep it up. Oh, you are the apple of my eye. Look at the way you're keeping this place clean. I love it. Oh, darling, it goes back and forth, both the husband and the wife. That is important. Then another one, physical affection. Let your spouse know that you appreciate being with him or her. You're married, for crying out loud. So show your affection even in public. Hold hands, touch each other. And then at home, look, rub his or her shoulder when he or she comes back from work. Especially, for instance, if your wife is a nurse or somebody who has a profession where she has to stand a greater part of the day. As she sits down and raises her feet, massage her feet or massage his feet. Do things like that. Kiss, hug, kiss him on the face, on the lips, on the ears. All that is expression, your affection for your spouse, for your husband or your wife. It's effective communication. Again, pay compliments. Your husband has dressed, he's leaving the house. Oh boy, I love this shirt you're wearing. This suit looks good on you. You should wear it more often. Wow, I married the most handsome man in the world. And it's the same thing too for your wife. Oh baby, this dress is good. You should wear it more often. Wow, you look pretty today. Things like that would make, your spouse feel really good about themselves and you are communicating effectively. Tension would be greatly reduced in your home. The next one is lead with a positive. If you're going to express yourself about something you like or you need or something you don't like, don't start it in a negative way. Start it with a positive. Use a positive lead in. So let's remind ourselves at this point that in communication, 93% is non-verbal. Body language, facial expression, and all that. While only 7% is verbal, where we use words, sound, and our voice. Of this 7%, let's look at the 3 steps to effective verbal communication. In marriage now, first step is express yourself or express how you really feel in a positive and kind way, and use more words with I rather than you. For example, you want to express yourself and you say, honey, I don't really like it when I text or I send you text messages and you don't respond all day. Rather than saying, you don't ever respond to my text messages. Why? Are you so busy all day that you don't see my text messages? That is not the right way to do it. Another one is state the behavior that caused the feeling clearly. Don't juggle things up. State clearly, honey, I feel bad when you don't respond to my text messages. It's clear. Finally, state what you want in a positive way. state it clearly in a positive way rather from the negative perspective. So those 3 steps are what we need to effectively communicate in marriage when we use verbal communication, when we use our voice. So the question here now is, are we communicating effectively? Before we go, let's take our quotable for today. And today's quotable is, not communicating effectively can destroy your marriage, even when you've been married for a long time. With that, we come to the end of today's edition of Knowing Me, Knowing You with Dolly. Remember, you have to ask yourself this question: are we communicating effectively? So ask yourself, ask your husband or your wife that question today. Are we communicating effectively? Only you can answer that question. I want to say a big thank you to you for being a part of our show, and for all of you who have been sending in comments, sending in WhatsApp texts, messages and all that, and even calling in to compliment us on this program. We would say a very big thank you. We're happy that Knowing Me, Knowing You with Dolly is making a difference in your life, in your marriage. And if anything you heard today on today's show resonates for you and you feel you can take anything home, then please don't forget to share it with your family members and your friends. And don't forget to subscribe also. That's been our show today on Knowing Me, Knowing You with Dolly. I am Dolly Asendo. Let's do this again sometime, okay?